They always have the same look on their faces, the same wide-eyed pause, the same instinctive tilt of the head, like their brain is running a quick systems check trying to figure out what's wrong with the picture in front of them. Because there's no way, this guy, this mountain, this walking slab of living granite is actually wearing a police badge. But he is, and not just any badge, is wearing it like it's forged into him, like it's part of his skeleton. The truth is, these men are not your cliché TV cops leaning against patrol cars, sipping lukewarm coffee, and scribbling traffic tickets. They are something else entirely. They are human fortresses in uniform. Guardians built from years, no, decades, of discipline, sweat, and unshakable willpower. Their presence alone is enough to shift the air in a room, to make the background noise fade into nothing. Inmates stop mid-sentence, conversations dry up, and even the most reckless offenders suddenly discover they have a pressing need to be somewhere else. It's primal, an instinct as old as humanity. When you're in the presence of overwhelming physical dominance, you know it. And every single person who's ever stood within 10 feet of these men knows it. Because these aren't weekend gym hobbyists posing for social media likes. These aren't the guys who do a few curls on Monday and skip leg day until further notice. These are full-time officers and soldiers who live and breathe the grind of professional-level training. They compete against the strongest humans on Earth, world champions, record holders, freaks of nature, and still show up for duty at dawn, ready to haul on a bulletproof vest and walk into whatever trouble the day brings. They exist at the razor edge between sport and service, between civilian law enforcement and raw, unfiltered power. Picture Ronnie Coleman, 8 straight Mr. Olympia titles, a man whose biceps alone look like they could file for their own zip code, patrolling the streets of Arlington, Texas. In competition shape, he's a shredded 300 pounds. In the off-season, he tips the scales over 330, all of it dense, coiled muscle. This is a man who casually deadlifted 800 pounds for representatives, squatted 600 like it was nothing, and made the phrase, "Yeah, buddy, lightweight, baby," into a global war cry for lifters. Now picture him in full uniform, badge gleaming, sidearm at his hip, walking into a bar fight or domestic disturbance hours after holding a gold trophy under stage lights. Inmates wouldn't even make eye contact. Criminals would rethink their career choices on the spot. Because Ronnie Coleman in uniform doesn't just look unstoppable, he is. Or take Kirill Sarachev, the Russian juggernaut whose sheer size makes most strong men look like average gym-goers. At 6 feet 5 inches and over 400 pounds, he is the definition of immovable force. In 2015, at the WRPF World Championships in Moscow, he benched 738.5 pounds raw. No bench shirt, no hidden assistance, just wrist wraps, a belt, and raw, terrifying strength. That single lift shattered the all-time raw bench press world record. Add to that a 793.7-pound squat, a 672.4-pound deadlift, and a combined total of over 2,200 pounds, and you begin to understand why. When Kirill walks into a high-security prison for a strength exhibition, word spreads like wildfire. By the time he steps inside, the halls are quieter than church on Monday morning. Some inmates won't even come out of their cells, not because they think he's going to hurt them, but because they know if he wanted to move them, they'd move, whether they liked it or not. In Sweden, there's Martin Forsmark, a 2-time winner of Sweden's Strongest Man and a full-time police officer with a presence that feels like it's been ripped straight from a Norse legend. At 163 kilos, his deadlift tops 900 pounds and his log press crushes 440 overhead like it's nothing. His pulled fire trucks, flipped tires taller than most men, and carried stones that would crush an untrained person just to look at. But it's not just raw size, it's precision. His lifts are so smooth they almost seem rehearsed. The control is unnerving, the kind of calm power that tells you he could break you in half but won't, unless you give him a reason. Then there's Derek Poundstone, Connecticut's human juggernaut. At his peak, while serving as a sergeant with the Naugatuck Police Department, he was among the strongest men on the planet. America's strongest man 3 years straight. 2-time Arnold Strongman Classic champion. A 900-plus pound deadlift, a 350-pound log press, and a career of hauling cars, stones, and Atlas balls like they were children's toys. Poundstone had the rare combination of size, speed, and tactical awareness, a nightmare combination for anyone dumb enough to try and run from him. And the younger generation, just as terrifying. Kyle Civey, a New Jersey corrections officer, is in his 20s and already benching 666 pounds, deadlifting over 800, squatting 845. He doesn't boast, doesn't post flashy videos, doesn't call out other lifters. He just shows up, lifts numbers most pros dream about, and goes back to work. Behind prison walls, his reputation does the talking. They call him Tiger, and even the inmates who don't lift weights understand exactly why. But this strength isn't just for show. It's for work. It's for action. Ohio State Trooper Isaiah Lamb Masters became a viral phenomenon after dashcam footage showed him walking up to a hay bale the size of a compact car that had fallen onto a highway and moving it, alone, by hand, like it was part of his warm-up set. Hundreds of pounds, no machinery, no assistance. Just a man doing his job with the kind of strength most people can't even comprehend. Across the globe, there's Park Jong-young in South Korea, IFBB pro bodybuilder, shredded to the bone, granite abs, perfect proportions, and an arrest record that leads the entire country. For 4 straight years, he's brought in more criminals than anyone else in the force. Or Finland's Marko Savolainen, 310 pounds of perfectly proportioned muscle, a bodybuilding icon who once helped popularize strength sports across an entire nation before returning to serve the public. And here's the truth that runs through all of them. These men aren't just strong. They're disciplined. Strength without discipline is just chaos waiting to happen. But strength with discipline, that's control. That's presence. That's the kind of silent authority that can diffuse a room without a single word. When they step into a prison yard, the effect is instant and universal. The clatter of domino game stops. Conversations cut short. The atmosphere thickens, as if everyone can feel the invisible weight of the man who just arrived. Because deep down, every single person there knows the truth. If things go bad, there's nothing you can do to stop him. These aren't just cops. They're not just soldiers. They are human tanks with badges. Guardians forged from iron and willpower. Living proof that when raw power is harnessed with discipline and purpose, it doesn't just win competitions. It keeps the peace. And in a world where danger can come from anywhere, these are the men you want on your side when the chaos begins. They don't just walk into the room. They arrive. And when they do, the atmosphere changes instantly. It's almost imperceptible at first, like a subtle drop in temperature or the sudden awareness of a shadow moving across the sun. Conversations pause, footsteps slow, and every set of eyes, willingly or not, gravitates toward the same point. There they are, men whose very silhouettes look like they were sketched by an artist obsessed with power, men whose forearms are thicker than most people's calves, whose traps climb so high toward their neck they seem to merge with the skull. And they are not here for sport, fame, or applause. They are here because they wear a badge, carry a duty, and step daily into places where fear is the default language. But unlike the standard image of law enforcement, uniforms filled by average builds, average stamina, average intimidation. These are outliers, walking contradictions to the stereotype. These are strong men who can deadlift more than most cars weigh, sprint faster than you'd think possible for their size, and still go through an entire shift dealing with volatile suspects, split-second decisions, and the endless mental grind of public service. Picture this, a maximum security prison, early morning, the sound of heavy boots echoing through the concrete corridors. Cells rattle as inmates begin their morning routines. But then the sound changes, slower, heavier, more deliberate. It's not just any officer on rounds. It's a man like Derek Poundstone. Yes, that Derek Poundstone, the 2-time America's strongest man, a sergeant who once hoisted Atlas stones heavier than an average adult male and carried them across competition fields in front of roaring crowds. Now imagine that same strength, that same unstoppable momentum, redirected into handling violent offenders in the tight confines of a cell block. There's no theatrics here, no trophies, no cheering audience, just the knowledge that if an inmate decides to make a move, there is no plan, no clever trick, no burst of adrenaline that will overcome the sheer physical certainty of being overpowered. And Poundstone isn't alone in this rare brotherhood. Across the globe, others stand in this strange intersection of elite athletics and frontline law enforcement. In Sweden, Martin Forsmark, twice crowned the nation's strongest man, trades the cheering stadium for the quiet, icy streets of Uppsala, patrolling with the same patience and control that once helped him pace through grueling strongman medleys. His hands, the same ones that gripped 400-pound logs overhead, now hold a service weapon with steadiness born from years of training, discipline, and zero tolerance for panic. In Russia, Kirill Sarachev, the man who bench-pressed 738.5 pounds raw, no suit, no tricks, embodies raw upper-body dominance. Even without the uniform, his mere presence commands attention. But with the badge, it's a message. Force, when tempered by training and discipline, is more than muscle, it's deterrence. And then there's Ronnie Coleman, the 8-time Mr. Olympia legend. While most know him for his bodybuilding dominance, fewer realize he was also a police officer in Arlington, Texas, during much of his competitive career. Imagine the surreal reality of being pulled over for speeding only to find the man approaching your window is the reigning king of bodybuilding, his biceps stretching the seams of his uniform, his voice a deep, commanding license and registration, please. That's the kind of encounter you don't forget. Not because you were scared, but because you realized you were in the presence of someone who had mastered two of the most demanding disciplines in the world at the same time. But this isn't just about spectacle. The fusion of elite strength and law enforcement training creates something far more dangerous to those who would cause harm. When you combine a man who can physically overpower almost anyone with tactical training in restraint, positioning, and crowd control, you get someone capable of ending confrontations in seconds, often without throwing a single strike. A suspect charging at an officer with this kind of physicality learns quickly that momentum means nothing when you're intercepted by a wall of muscle, balance, and experience. And because these officers aren't just lifters, they are athletes. They understand endurance, recovery, and controlled exertion. They know when to push, when to conserve, when to end a conflict without unnecessary damage. Their training regimes alone are enough to break most people. Mornings often start with functional strongman work, sled pushes, loaded carries, tire flips, drills designed not for aesthetics but for pure utility. This isn't the mirror-flexing gym culture. This is lifting sandbags because real life doesn't hand you neat, balanced weights. This is dragging a 200-pound dummy across uneven ground because in the field, that dummy might be a wounded civilian. Afternoons might be spent on the range, perfecting firearms handling while fatigued, because in real situations, you don't get to be fresh and rested. Evenings, cardio conditioning in tactical scenarios. And somewhere in between all this, they are running shifts, responding to calls, and doing the paperwork that every cop dreads but every cop must complete. The result of all this is a kind of presence that goes beyond intimidation. It's primal. Somewhere deep in our species' survival wiring, we recognize the human tank, the one you don't challenge unless you've given up on winning. Inmates, career criminals, even aggressive drunks at 3 a.m., they all feel it. They might posture, they might yell, but the body knows. And here's the thing. These men rarely need to use their full physical capacity. Because in law enforcement, the ultimate show of strength is when you don't have to use it at all. The mere sight, the knowledge of what they can do, is often enough to diffuse situations before they escalate. That's power. Not the kind that comes from lifting the heaviest weight once, but the kind that comes from years of knowing you could, but choosing when and how to act. In the end, these strongman officers are a reminder that strength, real, functional, disciplined strength, isn't just about competition or ego. It's a tool, a shield, a form of insurance for the moments when everything goes wrong. And in a world where chaos can erupt in the blink of an eye, having someone like that on your side isn't just reassuring. It's the difference between losing control and restoring order. They aren't just part of the thin blue line. They're the reinforced steel beam running through it, the ones who hold the line when the rest of the world starts to bend.